So we'll do a few deals a month typically from other local investors who will hit us up, need help with deals, need help with pricing, underwriting the property, negotiating with the seller. Basically, like any point of that process. Do we have a? Oh, here it is, right here. Just wait, pen. Brandon, you're Brandon B, is it right? Your email. So I'll write up right here, guys. Brandon's email, and Brandon, if you want to just write here, guys, in the back. Brandon does acquisitions for us. So it's Brandon B, Brandon Bramer at Easy Button HS.com. So if you guys need help, and then I'll write my email up here as well. If you guys need help on a deal or like with anything, you guys can always reach out to us. So if you're, if it's a marketing thing and you need some help, like, you know, real quick, and sometimes it's like, all right, we'll talk at the next meetup, you know, depending on if it's a very in-depth question. But if you need a quick thing and we can help with the marketing thing or whatever, we're happy to. And then once you have a lead, especially, hit us up. If you need help, you're not sure if it's a good lead or a bad lead, how to tell, and I'll talk about that a little bit tonight. Or if you need help trying to figure out what you need to offer for the property or what the property's worth or what can be done with the property, we're always more than happy to help. So hit us up. You can just CC me, but really send it to Brandon. He'll underwrite it and he'll be able to tell you and kind of work with you guys through it. Real quick, is there anybody here? I see like a lot of new faces. Has anybody here been to one of these before? I feel like everybody's new. Awesome, very cool. So this is only our third one. We're trying to be very regular with this. So we've been doing it around the 10th of every month. We've been very consistent for the first 3 so far and doing it on Wednesday. So if you guys want to continue to come, you're probably already registered either on the meetup site or on phxrealestatemeetup.com, which is our site. So as long as you're on either one of those, it'll stay updated, but it's always going to be basically around the 10th of each month on a Wednesday. So we'll talk about different things and just kind of basically looking to form relationships. Anybody that needs help, like I said, we're happy to do that. So we wholesale typically in a month anywhere from 5 to 10 deals. We don't do a whole lot of flips. I'll be happy to talk about why we don't. I've been down that road. I've done hundreds of flips. I've wholesaled hundreds of properties. I prefer to wholesale properties. The short of it is it's more profitable, it's quicker, and it's easier to scale than flipping properties with a lot less headaches, although flipping properties can make sense sometimes. And then we also love rental properties. So we've got 20 rental properties. We're always looking to expand that passive income side of things as well. Hey, welcome. Come on in. We just got started a little early, so you guys are good. So we're always looking to expand the rental portfolio as well. So we'll look at stuff. If it makes sense for a fix and flipper, we've been down that path. We know what people are looking for. Our buyers list is huge, 32,000 buyers here in Phoenix. So about half of our properties we'll sell will go to a repeat buyer. The other half will be somebody we've never met before. Typically, our properties will go 24 to 48 hours, which is extremely quick. So if you guys are in Phoenix and you get something and you get a deal, by all means, I would do everything in your power to try to sell it quickly on your own and try to get that whole deal. And then if you can't, reach out to us and say, hey, can you help me get that sold? Now, we're also happy to help you on the front end. If, like I said, working, is it a lead, is it a deal, all that kind of stuff. And if we can just kind of help you and you get a deal and you can do it with yourself, you know, great. But obviously, you know, we would like to help you on both sides of the business and really, you know, get good at being able to get deals, but also sell them. So, you know, we're very transparent and try to help you guys out. But our reputation and our buyers, you know, goes a long way as well. So locally, you know, there's a lot of times people will come to us, even experienced wholesalers, like, Josh, I just can't move this property. Can you help us move this? You know, and we'll get it sold. So we're always happy to do that. And that's pretty cool. I wanted to do the inventory. We've done this the last couple of months. This is something I look at all the time. So if doing deals here in Phoenix, I have somebody trying to get inside. Doing deals here in Phoenix, it's going to be hey, come on in. It's super important, and in any market, really, to pay attention to how many properties are on the market, how many are pending, how many are selling, and then the ratio of those. So basically that, in short, just gives you your supply and demand. It tells you where the market's kind of at. So what we've seen the last couple months, inventory's cropped up just slightly. but it's really just been, as Brandon, we were just talking about this, we grabbed a bite right before we came over here. It's really just a seasonal thing, and it'll pick back up now as we get into the spring, or I'm sorry, the fall. But right now, so for all of MLS, do we have any realtors in the room? Bunch of realtors. Okay, great. So this is all, you guys will know what I'm talking about then, all MLS, active. We are at 16,083. Now this is as of like 2.5 hours ago, something like that. 16,083. The number that I really pay attention to, though, is Maricopa County. Can everybody hear me? I know I'm pretty loud, but when I stand this way, does everybody hear me okay? Good, okay, cool. Maricopa County, I do under 700K. Maricopa County. And the reason I do that, you could do, if anybody's here and they're from Pinal County or from the outskirts, Yavapai, whatever, you know, there's deals out there, and we've done deals all over Arizona. But for really what we're doing, I mean, 95% of our deals are always going to be Maricopa County, and predominantly under 700K. Apparently, occasionally we'll do a higher end deal, but for the most part, you know, the bread and butter where you're going to be able to quickly move stuff, the cheaper the better. And so, like, ideally right now, stuff that's like under 200. Hey, welcome. Here's a couple familiar faces. Come on in, guys. We got started a couple minutes early, so you're great. So typically, you know, the cheaper the better. Anything under 200 right now is just like on fire. And really even up to 300, as long as you've got enough equity. As you go up in sales price, you will need more equity if you're going to wholesale it. So that's something to keep in mind. So for example, if a house is worth 150, I mean, I might be able to wholesale that thing for like 135. If a house is worth 250, you know, I'm going to need much more than a $15,000 spread. I might need like a $50,000 spread. Does that make sense? So when you get up to a $700,000, you might need like a $250,000 spread to be able to wholesale a deal. So it's just something to keep in mind. And sometimes, obviously, when you really get looking at each individual deal, you might be able to pencil that down a little bit. But I get people coming to me all the time, like trying to cram a deal that's just not a deal. And typically, that's what it is. You're looking at spreads that maybe that spread would make sense on a lower price range. So it's just something to keep in mind. But again, the lower the better. I do go up to 700 for kind of 700,000 for kind of looking at the stats. So as of today, actives is 10,767. Now last month we were at 10,541. And I don't have this number, I didn't jot it down, I have it, but not with me, of what the actives were at last month. But I know we're slightly up here, not by much, and we are, as you can see here, we're slightly up as well, about 220 properties from last month. So very marginal, you know, seasonal, nothing too much to worry about. Now pendings, we are 78.59. Last month we had 78.95. So we're very consistent there. That's actually like interesting. I mean, it literally changed like 36 properties. And then solds, and this is through yesterday, because when I pulled it today hadn't completed yet, so we didn't know what the stats had been. We were 71.25 compared to 74.90 last month. So sales are slightly down, 300 houses over the month. Again, pendings are pretty much the exact same. Actives are just barely slightly up. The market's strong. I'm not seeing anything that's like really changing. Buyer's perspective, seller's perspective, anything like that. Right now, it's super hot. Again, hey, come on in. The lower the price, the hotter it is, and it's getting not like super crazy, but I mean it's very strong right now. It's very hot. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this fall. You know, kind of as we get through that. I think we were actually slightly up. Do you remember last month's numbers? I think we were like, I feel like we were just about the same difference up last month too. So it's just kind of.
The first month you were at 1.3.
Uh-huh.
And then you came up to 1.4 months of inventory last month.
Perfect. Yep. And what are we here? We're at
Just about the same.
yeah. So very consistent and hot. We're moving properties, like I said, quickly, as long as the numbers make sense, which I kind of gave a brief over to how we look at that and structure a deal. So I'll get into a Q&A here in a minute as well, and just kind of free flow through the night. I like to kind of do that. I think it's really good. If anybody has any questions about this, feel free to let me know. Or go ahead right now, I guess, actually, on this inventory thing before I kind of shift gears real quick. Does anybody have any questions on that? Hey, come on in. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay, cool. All right, so Rogelio, we were talking about leads and kind of how to know if they're good or not, and when you kind of talk to them and stuff like that. So Rogelio was doing a bunch of cold calling, went through the cold calling on steroids course, right? And which is something I do, I could talk more about that if anybody has any questions. But it's a whole bunch of calls going out, right? It's using phones as a marketing tool. And so he's like, when I talk to these people, how do I really like decipher which ones are good? And this is a great point, because as you start talking to people, you want to get real estate deals. The best way to get real estate deals is to talk to people. But if you don't know what to say and where to go with the conversation, you can just kind of go in circles. And so you can use a ton of energy, and maybe you get a deal, or maybe you don't. But either way, it can become a lot of work quickly. And so when the name of the game is numbers, you want to be able to be as efficient with your time and energy as possible talking to people. So we've developed over the years of talking to sellers like a system for qualifying the leads. And I think it's 7-step system. I'll go through it real quick. So the first one is, hi, my name is, right? So in our case, it's Brandon. And again, I know a couple of people have walked up. This is Brandon's in the back, guys, here. Brandon does acquisitions for Easy Button Home Sales. So I've got his email up here, brandonb@easybuttonhs.com, as well as my email, josh@pdxphx.com. If you need help on any deals, on anything at all, reach out to him. We're more than happy to help all the time. So step number one, if a call comes in, is going to be, hi, that's not right. Hi, this is. That sounds kind of funny, right? If like somebody called me, I'm like, hi, my name is Josh. They'd be like, I know. I called you Josh, but hi, this is Brandon. So it's super simple, right? And it's just organic. Now, with certain stuff, like if you were running like pay-per-click stuff or super like branded marketing, then you might be like Easy Button Home Sales, right? Or whatever the company. Primarily with wholesaling, you're going to be dealing with really down-to-earth people, very simple, organic. Now, if they're taking a lot of bids on the house, they might like to see that you have your stuff together, that you're branded, you have business card shirts, you know what you're doing, you have some testimonials, title company references, etc. That'll go a long way. But for a lot of people, they just want to kind of connect with you. And so the easiest way to do that is just really keep it simple, down to earth. So primarily, especially with the phones, hi, this is Brandon, or even with direct mail, we do the same thing. Actually, it'd be hi, this is Brandon. Now, the second thing is going to be, I just walked into my office. This is kind of a script, right? I just walked in. Can I get the address again? Now, what's key is the phrase, to pull up my notes. It takes me a minute to write it, but you guys can take a picture of this when we're done here and use it as a script. So I just walked in. Can I get your address again to pull up my notes? Now what this does is it says basically that like you actually did look at the property, something was going on, but as far as specifically you were interested in their property, but you don't probably have their address handy, right? Now with some forms of marketing, you might know exactly who it is calling you back, right? If it's a like prospecting thing, you called like one person. For most of the stuff, whether it's a triple dialer, a voice broadcast, you sent mail, like whatever, they're going to call and you're like, I've got a list of 5,000 people I marketed to, or 25,000 people, or 125,000 people. I mean, our list is huge. So typically, you're not just going to like know their address. So this is a good way that it keeps it feeling real, like we talked about here a minute ago, but it makes it real easy for them to give you your address. Because what you want to do throughout the whole process is just reduce friction, make it really easy for them to talk to you. And so if you're like, if they're like, well, don't you have my address? And you're like, no, I just called a whole bunch of people. It kind of creates friction, and they're like, what's going on? So it keeps it super simple. You get the address. Now, bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, as you get when you get the address, you may or may not pull it up. Okay, so like for the realtors in the room, a lot of you guys are probably pretty quick with using MLS and Monsoon, so you're probably going to be able to pull it up quickly as long as you're sitting at a computer. For others of you guys, you could practice pulling up properties quickly on Zillow. Works just fine as well. And so as you pull it up, you're like, great, let me pull up my notes, because they just gave you the address, right? Great, let me pull up my notes. By the way, what do you want for it? Okay, and this is asking price number one. So real quick, you've got their name, more than likely, because they said, well, say, hi, this is Janet, Brandon. Oh, great, I'm so glad you called me, Janet. By the way, I just walked in. Can I get the property address from you again to pull up my notes? Sure, it's 123 Main Street. Great, let me pull that up. Type in 123 Main Street. By the way, what do you want for it? She might say, I don't know. That's great, okay. If I offered you $1 million, you'd probably jump on that. And if I told you $1,000, you'd probably tell me to go kick rocks. You know, do you have something? So even just by saying another something, they may or may not tell you, but a lot of them will. So it's always just good to know. A lot of them are still going to say, I don't know. Now this right here, guys, is asking price number 1. And you don't worry too much, and this is why we're getting into all this. We don't worry too much about what this price is. So if retail's 200 and they sell, say 220, who cares, right? Like, who really goes out there and just says the lowest price they would take for their house or their car or like anything they want to sell? We don't, right? It's not human nature. So this is just asking price number 1. Like I said, they might not even tell you. They might just say, I don't know. Well, they probably have some idea, but they might say, I don't know, or they might say, I don't know, I want you to tell me first. Some variation, right? So either way, if you have it, you notate the number. If they don't give it to you, you just roll on, right? So, okay, great, let me pull up my notes. Now you are going to, you want to know the occupancy information. And there's going to be 3 scenarios. You're going to have owner occupied, you're going to have tenant occupied, and you're going to have vacant. It's always going to be one of those 3. So if it's owner occupied, you want to know when they're moving and where they're moving. So when, where, moving. Now the reason why is if I say, where are you moving? And you say Indianapolis, and I say, when are you moving? 3 weeks, the moving trucks are ready. We got to go. We can't afford both mortgages. It's probably pretty hot, right? Well, what if they say, I don't know where I'm moving. Well, when are you moving? I don't know. All right, maybe you're going to follow up with this person. Maybe they still will have some interest down the road, or maybe they do and they're not even telling you, but probably they're very much less motivated. Now, if it's tenant occupied, what you want to know, is it month to month, or is it long-term lease? Now, you can get like, how much do you pay in rent? Are they good tenants? Are they bad tenants? More of those questions, and sometimes you want to get deeper with some of that stuff. I don't want to go too involved with this tonight, and a lot of times you're not going to want to, hey, come on in, welcome. You're not going to want to spend too much time anyways, because you want to keep the energy high. You want the whole conversation ideally to only be like 5 or 10 minutes. Very good energy from them. They're like excited to talk to you again and work with you, and they're like, this is probably the guy or gal that I'm going to work with. Like, they seem great. They seem like they're on top of their game. So is it month to month or long-term lease? The reason this really primarily matters, if it's month to month, then when you sell this, when you go to sell this deal to a buyer, it's going to be very appealing for a buyer, because they can either make that person sign a long-term lease, or they can keep it month to month, or they can give them 30 days notice and flip the house vacant if they wanted. Like, they can pretty much do whatever they want. Almost as good as vacant after 30 days. If it's a long-term lease, maybe it's good for a buy and hold investor, but at least even if it is going to be a flip deal, at least you know what you're working with, right? Now, if it's vacant, you want to know how long and who lived there, right? Because if it was owner-occupant 2 months ago and they just moved and they're paying double mortgages, like I said, or some situation, that's very different than, you know, there's a number of scenarios we've bought houses from. You know, it could be, we had one guy in Sun City, he just house been vacant for like 5 years because their daughter was the last one to live there, their grown daughter, and then that was 5 years ago. It just kind of sat there. We had another one, lady had the house had sat in Sun Lakes empty for 10 years, came with a car that had sat there for 10 years. So you'll have all sorts of situations why they're vacant, and it could be vacant because they had tenants there and they're just turning it over. The tenants just moved out and they're just about to put tenants in there again, right? But as you understand that, this right here is key to your timeline, understanding what's going on with the actual house, right? And so now you have, this is, you know, a starting point maybe, but ultimately this really matters more in the beginning. Now, after you've gotten the occupancy information, now you want to get the property details. Now, because technology is so good, like Zillow, MLS, there's tons of tools out there. Most of you guys, we can pull up like square footage, you know, a lot of times even pictures. Hey, come on in. A lot of times, if there was an old listing, pictures, like all that information. Tons of information, right? So Usually we keep it pretty simple on the property details. We ask them usually beds and baths. You know, maybe we'll confirm the square foot, just like, hey, the count, it shows this, is that accurate? Oh no, it's been added on to or less, or like, no, the county's wrong or whatever, so we'll just ask. Now, newer houses, square footage is usually more accurate. Older houses, it could be all over the place. If there was additions, were they permitted, were they not, like all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of why we ask them that, because then when we look it up, the square footage, we're gonna kind of reference it to what they said. And sometimes it's bigger than they thought, sometimes it's smaller than they thought, sometimes they're counting the whole thing, but they don't realize it's unpermitted and it's really not, you know. So all that's gonna help you to know. So proper beds, baths, square foot. You know, you might chat real quick, oh, does it have a garage, does it have a pool? Again, you can go more in depth here with them, and there's tips and tricks that I could go really involved, but bottom line, the stuff you want to know is just kind of the pertinent details. So especially if you've got it up on a computer and you can kind of see just what questions you might want to ask them, that then you can fill in the rest when you get off the phone with them and then call them back later with an offer. That's how we do it. So we'll just kind of confirm this stuff. Now for the condition, we use a 1 through 5 ranking system, and it works really well. So we'll just explain to them, you know, 1 through 5, what's the condition of the property? And then if they're like, well, what do you mean? Like, well, 5 being like, it's perfect, you just remodeled it, everything's like current as of this year. A 4 is like, you know, immaculate property, really well maintained, but it's not like recently fully updone. 3 is, you know, it's good property. 2 is kind of not so nice. 1's crap, you know, whatever. And we kind of like that. The other thing we'll ask them is floors and counters. And then HVAC and roof. So for the floors and counters, the reason we ask that, if somebody tells me they have granite countertops and hardwood floors throughout the house, what would you guys think of that house? Rough, if you had to guess, like condition of the property. Probably pretty good. But if I see the house was built in 1968 and they say original countertops and the linoleum floor, right? Carpet that hasn't been replaced in 8 years. You're like, okay, right? I don't need to like go over the whole thing. I know I can look up square footage, all that stuff, Google Maps, see a street view, probably read between the lines on a lot of that stuff. HVAC and roof is nice because those are bigger components of properties. And that'll tell you something too. If they're like, oh, I replaced both of them last year, or they're 5 years old or whatever, just those are kind of good to know. So we don't spend a lot of time here. Again, this whole call should only be 5 to 10 minutes long. So you're really gonna only spend here 2 to 3 minutes. Now there might be a few occasions where it's an interesting property or something like that, and you spend a few more minutes, but you don't want to like bore them out. That's really the point. Get the information you're going to need to make an offer, but again, and if they're selling you the property here, that's like just try to get through it, call back, make an offer, because usually if they're really selling, it's a sign that they're a very retail offer anyways, right? You want it to be about like why they're selling. So now, after you've gotten through the property details, you want to be able to now answer this question. Why are you selling? Now you might already know this because throughout this, keeping energy high, it's been pretty rolled, all that. Sometimes people will just right off the way start vomiting and tell you all the information. Oh, I'm selling because blah, 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 blah. But a lot of them won't, right? So a lot of them, like they're kind of holding their cards. They're kind of sounding like maybe, you called me or you sent me a piece of mail or whatever, but, they're not really telling you like what's really going on, why they're selling, how motivated they are, what their timeline is, that kind of stuff. So if you don't really know that through a combination of the occupancy and just everything else as you've talked to them for a few minutes now, just ask them, like, why are you selling, And if they're like, well, I'm just kind of ready to like downsize, maybe move across town. That's more of a retail type scenario. Now they still might be open to an offer, so I'm not saying like don't make an offer, but it's just, again, you kind of want to become able to kind of read between the lines and look for signals. So that's one thing. But if they say, well, I really need the money because X, Y, Z, or I'm trying to get out of the state as quick as I can. It doesn't always have to be a true like something's going on. Like it doesn't have to be financial distress or even situational distress. It can just be, like I said, just motivation or even convenience. And I mean, like honestly, I would say, Brandon, what percentage of our deals would you say are convenience deals? Like where they're dealing with us out of convenience?
At least 50, probably 50%.
At least half of them.
At least that.
So that says something. I mean, people really want convenience, and they'll, if you educate them and you're able to tell which deals are really deals, and then you're able to, those people are typically, you can educate them on the differences between retail and working with you anyways and the benefits. And a lot of times, you'll bring that to a deal. So now, after why are you selling, you're gonna value proposition them. I'm running out of room. And what value proposition means, that just means remind them of, hey, welcome guys, come on in. That just means we should have some seats wherever, if you got to grab them, do whatever, get comfortable. Value proposition means you're going to explain to them the features and the benefits of doing business with you. So the features and the benefits of doing business with us is that it's going to be cash, so they don't have to worry about banks. They don't have to worry about it closing in a long time, right? They can pick the move-out date or the close date, which can be quick if they want it to. And we're going to buy it as is, which means they don't have to do anything. And people love that because if people are going to list with a realtor, typically, and there's going to be no fees. That's the other huge thing. So if people list with a realtor, they're typically going to pay 6%. They're going to pay 2 to 3% to the title company. They're going to go through a renegotiation period with the realtors and the other buyers where people might ask them to fix stuff or contribute money off of the price towards stuff. Good chance the buyer's going to ask for the seller to pay for the buyer's closing costs because the buyer's going to get tapped out paying for their down payment, and the realtor's going to educate them, hey. So when you educate all these things to a person who is a real seller and actually wants to make a real estate sell right now, and you add all that up, and they can actually look at the difference, they see that, hey, come on in, that it's not just the difference of selling my house for $200 or $150, but it's really the difference of walking away with maybe $165 and $150 or whatever. And now it's, convenience, no stress. We're not going to renegotiate. We're not, we are going to let you stay in an extra couple days, whatever it is, right? If you want to become a deal like ninja and really good at people, both the sellers and the buyers, a lot of people will be scared off if the person wants to stay past close of escrow or there's an eviction going on or whatever. You just want to understand what's going on with all those situations. Because that might be a great deal and somebody might love that deal and be like, oh my gosh, that's a great opportunity out there. And so you just need to be able to get to the heart of what's going on. And then later, we won't probably have time to talk about it tonight, but be really good at how to position that deal to your buyers. And like I said, we can always help you guys with that. And maybe next month I can get into that, like how we frame deals when we sell them to the buyers and position them so that the buyers see what they need to see. Which is everything, right? So if they don't see the right information or they're skipping over it, or then you cannot sell a deal that should have sold. So very important. So after the value proposition, which again, to recap, is we're going to buy it as is, so you don't have to do anything. There's going to be no fees. You can pick the closing date. Am I forgetting anything there? Those are the big ones. All right. And then if there's anything else, this is why each seller lead might have something unique to them, right? They're like, can I stay 2 days? Or can I take the refrigerator, whatever it is, like any random thing, right? You're like, and by the way, we'll take care of that, and whatever. With all of that being said, what's the lowest you take for the property? So this is step 8. This is asking price number 2. Okay, and now the idea would be that between number 1 and number 2, you've gained some rapport, you kind of understand what's going on, you're able to touch on the benefits, especially if you can touch on the benefits specific to their situation and how it helps them. That's even better. And like I said, you've kind of educated them on the difference if they're to sell retail or if they're to just take your easy cash offer. And you ask them again, so with all that we've talked about, like what's the lowest you would take? They still might not give you a number, but a lot of them will. A lot of them will give you a number here and here. A lot of times this number will be lower than here. That pattern will tell you something. Again, we could talk more about that. All this stuff, I could talk for 2 days about this, which we're doing in Dallas here next month. But I want to at least give you guys like the 80% of it tonight. So asking price number 2. And then right here is when you're either going to set the appointment or you're going to, it's either going to be a phone appointment or an in-person appointment. So let's just say set appointment, okay? Now, if you're new, I would recommend you go on every single appointment you can go on because the more face-to-face time is going to help you get good with people and at wholesaling in general. As you do it more and more, you're going to start looking at the energy and the time of certain appointments, and you're like, you know what, I can't go to Buckeye for this person that wants more than retail. Like, I'm still going to call them and like have a heart-to-heart with them, whatever I can, because I think there's like maybe potentially, but I think it's very low probability, maybe 2 or 5%. And I think I can make 50 phone calls today. I've got 10 other good leads to follow up with. That's kind of the way that it will transition. But the way we do it in our office is we tell them, okay, great, let me do a little bit of homework. Are you going to be home in half an hour or 2 hours, whatever the time frame is? Oh, you're going to the store, okay, great, 3 hours, great, whatever, okay. I'm going to call you back. Is this the best number to call you on? Is this your home or is this your cell? It's a great place to get home or cell phone number, by the way, because a lot of people might just go on their home. Now, if you can get their cell right now, that's good as well. But you're going to let them know, hey, I'm going to do some homework. I'm going to call you back with an offer. Now, letting them know you're going to call them back with an offer is exactly what they want. So, and in fact, some people just like right here are going to be like, well, I want an offer. And you're going to be like, well, hold on. Like, I only need 5 minutes of your time. Let me ask you a few basic questions. I'll be able to call you back with an offer. But it'll be an offer I can actually do, not just blowing smoke. And they'll be like, oh, okay. And they'll let you go through this, right? So when you set the appointment, it's pretty easy. You're going to set the call back. Or, like I said, you could set for the appointment in person, okay? You've now basically qualified the lead, okay? 80% of the leads are qualified here. And what I mean by that is you know why they're selling, what their timeline is, what's going on with the property, what the property is like, and you've made sure that they understand this, or you've at least tested, are they open to understanding this? Does that make sense? So now from there, I say that 80% of your leads will be qualified. The other 20%, you still won't be able to tell. Like they just wouldn't open up to you. You couldn't get a good read on them. I mean, we could probably make a list of a few other things here, but you just really don't know yet, Usually it's just because they just kind of holding their cards in. They might have given you the information on the property and the occupancy and all that kind of stuff, but they really didn't tell you like, are they motivated or not, They just told you why. So now the only way to find out is to make an offer. So when you go through all this and right here you've got nothing, then I typically don't make an offer. We tell them, hey, keep us in mind when the timing is right. We'd love to make an offer. But if we told you what we could pay today and you call us 3 months, it's not really going to matter because the price is going to be different. That'd just be frustrating. We put a lot of time into it trying to come up with our highest offer for you so that we could actually make a deal. What it really all comes down to, though, everyone, is that it's trial close. At the end of this whole process, you want to know, will they do a deal with you now or not? Like, if you could make the numbers work and make the situation work or like whatever, make everything work, will they actually do a deal with you or not? If they won't, just don't make an offer. It's not really worth it. If they want you to sign a contract, they want you to, go ahead, yeah.
Is that something you let them know at the beginning or towards the end?
So it depends. Great question. So like, if at the beginning they ask and they're like, I just want to know what the property's worth, like a lot of times that'll come up here, right? Because as you ask these questions, a lot of times those sellers will give you pushback, and anytime you get pushback, we talk about the elephant in the room, that means just address it. So if you're getting pushback, just be like, well, why do you want to know? And if they're like, well, I don't want to feel uncomfortable with you going through your whole thing, because really I'm just trying to figure out like kind of what it's worth. Okay. Oh, okay, great. So you just want to know kind of what it's worth? Like, yeah. And then there's a... Totally. And they might open up later in the call or like whatever. Yeah, but if that truly is all they want, then like let them know that, be really nice to them, make an impression on them, and then hopefully, when timing and circumstance does come into play, whether it's next year, next month, 5 years, they're like, oh, that lady, like I'm going to call her back, you know what I mean? She seemed really nice. I'd like, maybe her offer is good. That would make things really easy. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you get through all that. If you don't know, so a lot of times too, you'll be like, yeah, they are ready to sell, okay? That's one thing so there's we always talk about in the office, one, are they a real seller? Okay, now every seller almost on the MLS is a real seller. That means they will actually do a deal if they can get the price they want and the terms that they want. Then the second thing is, are they a wholesale seller? Now what a wholesale seller means is, can you close on a deal at with some equity in the property? Or is there no way they would ever be open to that no matter what, because their whole goal is to get the most money or whatever? So a lot of times, or I should say 100% of the time basically, you should know if they're a real seller at the end of this call. I mean, there might be a couple examples because the person's super strange. Go ahead.
Hey Josh, I walked in right at 7, so I missed. How are you generating the lead in the first place?
So great question, and I'll be happy to talk about that too other ways. Primarily for us, it's phone. We do a ton of direct mail as well, and when I say a ton, I mean like tens of thousands per month, but we do like hundreds of thousands a month in calls. There's other ways to do it, and if you do it like manually, most of our stuff's done with automation. You can do it off less volume, but there is door knocking is a good way, calling is a good way, direct mail, Google, although it's more expensive, just general networking and putting the word out there that you buy houses as is, no fees. You can deal with whatever situation. It's cash. They don't have to worry about banks or appraisals or inspections or any of that kind of stuff. Just a good old easy deal. You'll start getting leads. You can go. We don't. In our office, we don't target any of it. I mean, we'll get it. We'll have people reach out to us that are already listed, and we'll find that out here, right when we looked it up. And that's really easy, because then it's like, oh, we can see how long it's been listed and if the price has changed. So at that point, then we just ask them, like, great, I see it's been listed for 2 months and you haven't dropped the price. Like, are you negotiable on price? Well, yeah, we're pretty negotiable. Like, we need to get this thing sold, and we just haven't really, the realtor's not really working with us, blah, blah, blah. You might have something there. And 1 in 30 maybe are like that. A lot of them are like, nah, yeah, I'm a little flexible. I mean, maybe $5,000 or like whatever. And you're like, okay, there's nothing here,
Is the department cool with you calling listed properties?
No, you can't. If you're targeting, not if you're intentionally calling them. But if you just cold call lists, like, yeah, I mean, basically yes, because you're not intentionally calling them, trying to interfere with the listing or anything like that. The other thing is, it's if are you licensed or not. So on that point, anybody who's licensed, like, it goes without saying, the stuff you've got to do. If you're not licensed, then it doesn't really matter if they're listed or not. You're just reaching out to them. They might say, hey, we're going to have our realtor call you, or whatever. But bottom line, I mean, I would say 90% of properties, if they're already listed, actually probably higher than 90%, if they're already listed, probably aren't going to be a deal. So like I said, real easy question, hey, are you negotiable on list price? And then you can ask them, hey, do I give you the number? You tell your, however. But generally, the deals that we've done that have been listed, they are, they'll say, yes, we are negotiable. And then usually the realtor involved is usually like a family member, a friend of a friend. At the end of the day, it's someone who has their best interests at heart that really just wants the deal to close, that'll come in and help that deal be made. If it's somebody that just cares about their commission and all that kind of stuff and is like, no, why would you sell it? I think the property's worth more than that, even though we haven't been able to sell for, blah, 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 you're just going to spin your wheels.